what is it you are, if you just raise your hand, what is it you want to know?
Is technique being successful at a home scale and beyond for
All right.
just growing your own food and especially production?
Awesome. Who else? Sure. Yeah, the sustainability loop, the closing the loop concepts. All right. Yeah. How you get started on the land you're purchasing, first step. Okay.
I think one thing to add is the general philosophy of KNF and how the similarities and differences in relation to permaculture.
All right.
I guess it'd be interesting to see overlap. I know, like, the nutritional needs and stuff, like, mushrooms are still being discovered, but, like, best practices.
Yeah. Absolutely. Overlap with mushroom cultivation. What else? I'm logging all of these. We're going to touch on all of them. No? One more.
Essentially growing bomb weed, bomb food, and bomb earth.
All right. So I told Cass, I said, I can speak for a while. What? Just plug me in and what you want me to speak at. So I'm like, and so she made my title for my talk tomorrow. She's like, growing fire weed. I was like, fire buds.
Fire buds.
It's like, all right, I guess that's what we're talking about.
That's why I started getting into KNF because, well, not always, but I love growing my own medicine. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna grow some bud. And then I was like, well, my friend Maddie and Rascal, they were like, oh, well, they could talk about KNF forever. And I was like, I could get down with that. And then the biggest piece for me was hanging out with you and understanding the level of fermentation, because we talk about where we're from, we talk about these things. Fermentation comes to me as this like ancient practice that's so what's the word, intuitive, and so it just makes sense. And I think the other biggest thing that made sense to me was, and this is like so blatantly obvious, but feeding soil to grow plants and not feeding plants directly, and thinking about it from a microbiome standpoint is what I think is so big.
It's huge. That is it. We stop trying to chase the plant's nutritional needs with above ground analysis, and we start to really look at what is healthy soil do to production and how can we achieve that. All right, some people are coming. We're going to start because this is an acceptable late if we're in Hawaii. My name's Chris Trump. I got into natural farming as a result of a need on our farm. We needed to, we were growing conventional and organic. We had been for about 10 years. It's my dad's operation, and organic sucked. We did all the cutting edge tech. We got a grant to produce an organic product, which we produced, and we were losing money on organics. We had a compost tea system. We were bringing in quality vermicompost, and we had a composting program, and all of that applied to organic acreage, and our organic trees were yellow, they were malnourished, they were underproductive, and we supported our organic hobby with our conventional farm. So we had 750 acres, 350 organic, 400 conventional, and organic was failing pretty consistently. And so we knew that there was a profitability point we could access for our farm. My dad, I joke, not really a joke, but we're in business to provide a living wage.
With great power comes great responsibility.
So you're going to talk about all the experiences so far, and I think it's we're going to get now back and forth.
Okay.
To your soil smithy.
Okay.
Jump in anytime.
Okay. Well, the banner got dropped on my head, so now I've forgotten everything.
So, Master Cho came to my small town. Chohan Kyu is
Tell people who he is.
A Korean man that saw conventional coming in Korea. Korea got conventional agriculture after us. They were kind of a developing nation, and he saw what was happening. He knew he was in agriculture, and he said farmers need another option, otherwise this takes over. And so real kind of foresight. And he studied enzymatic theory in Japan with some leading world-renowned scientists. We don't hear a lot about them because much of their literature and work is in Japanese. Very little of it translated. But he speaks Japanese and studied in Japan with a few different scientists there, but developed a method that basically takes some traditional ag, things that were conventional ag revolution, and that just worked. Farmers did them for generations. They passed them on to their children because they were effective ways to grow food, and combined it with kind of cutting edge enzymatic theory and some things that they discovered over the years. He is close to 90 now, and has mellowed. He's not running around the world teaching everybody anymore. He's in Korea, kind of doing the family thing. But he taught people all over the world. I got to hang out with Dr. Anat in Thailand. He runs Thai's most prestigious ag college, and he's a student of Master Cho. There's a leading scientist in India, Rohini Reddy, I get to talk to, and she has, there's incredible things that have happened in some communities in India, Thailand, Japan, the Philippines, all over the world. This has become a growing staple in agriculture, and how best to produce food. And ultimately, Korean natural farming is a system that combines crop production with animal production. That's where Korean natural farming achieves a completely closed loop scenario. It's a integrated farm, chickens and or pigs, even cattle, combined with crop production, where your byproducts are your animal feed, and your animal waste is your crop feed. And in that system, it's incredibly elegant and beautiful in its accessibility to really anyone. So farmers are, we have this funny, I don't know where it comes from, but in the U.S. we have this perception that farmers are dumb. And it's kind of, maybe it's cartoons or something, I don't know. But I get to travel all over, and some of the smartest people I've ever encountered are farmers, but not necessarily traditionally educated. They're not necessarily people that have gone to college. And so Korean natural farming provides this kind of cutting edge microbial tech to farmers in a very accessible way, where they can achieve really so much of what we talk about, really wonderful, famous regenerative ag speakers are talking around this whole concept. And for me, my role in this, I'm not going to be, I love research. If I could do one thing, I would probably stop the other things and just do research. But ultimately, in plotting world takeover, what's needed is the translation to the farm. And I think that Korean natural farming and then the work I get to do is really helping farms strategically kind of achieve success using these practices. And that's happened a lot over the last couple years, and will continue, but also education. So helping people know the nuance and the details of Korean natural farming so that they can achieve success. Korean natural farming ultimately is taking its cues and the how-to from natural law. So the whole concept is, how does nature do
Everybody
this?
wave at my mom.
Oh, you're going to introduce her. Are you coming up on stage? She's going to hate you.
She's gonna hate me. Mom, come up on stage.
Busted!
Everybody say hi to the Virgo. Guys, this is my mom, Cassandra Posey, light of my life. I wouldn't be here without her, literally.
You can tell them about it.
No, don't. Once upon a time, no. Hi. So happy that you're here. This is my friend Chris that I've been telling you all about.
Oh,
Hey.
yeah, hi. Nice
Good
to
to
meet
meet
you.
you.
Yeah.
We're talking about Korean natural farming.
I'm going to listen now.
Okay. Hi, Kelly. And you were talking about mimicking nature in ways that is accessible to the soil to help grow food. That's
How
what
do
we
you
just
see
talked about.
that, the mimicry of nature?
Well, in my eyes, it's a couple different ways, and I have this obsession with it, mimicry of nature in these. We are nature, right? And I think it's something that gets lost in translation a lot because we have such a big impact that doesn't feel natural. But at the core of it, our being, our existence is natural. And then you think about evolution in the standpoint of like, okay, well, we've pushed it so far to this limit that maybe these things that we're making feel unnatural, but they're still a natural substance made by us. So the mimicry of nature to me feels like something that is inherently in our being. We understand it. We just need to figure out how to emulate it in a way that makes sense. And sometimes we get it wrong. We got it wrong for a really long time.
Truth. And so one of the premises and how we got it wrong is a premise that nature is broken. That these crops are malnourished because nature has failed, and therefore we need to apply X, Y, and Z chemicals to make nature work again, to make crops grow again. And so this is a concept, even back to, is it designed or is it just random? And so some of the philosophy from its nature's random, it came together randomly. I'm not up here to talk, origin of life necessarily, but I am a believer. The deeper I go in nature, in the microbial diversity, the interconnectivity, Matt was talking a bit about it yesterday, trying to break everybody's brain. But I've sat in a microscope looking at a fungal hypha and watched bacteria using it on a slide in a drop of water. Bacteria is using the tube that is the fungal hypha as a speedway or a highway to travel. They're inside another organism moving through with their nutrients, etc. The complexity of nature, to me, it's a symphony. And a symphony has a music writer. They wrote the parts. You got an orchestra leader keeping time. It's the epitome of not random, and that's what I see in nature. So back to that, conventional is because it's broken, we need to fix and right all of that so that crops will grow. Rewind a little bit further where everybody knew that nature was great for growing food. You just needed to care for your land in proper way, and next year you're going to have a great harvest. That's a lot of what natural farming is. It's new in its elegance. It's a nice, pretty package of the things you need to emulate nature, but it's not new as a concept. Natural farming is really just a return to you actually are a really important part of this, so don't go anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere. I don't know why Chris.
Even if you don't talk, it was just that you said you were going to co-teach it with me, so
I'm co-teaching natural farming.
I'm holding
soil
holding
steward.
you to it. But I think that's really the beauty of this, and where, talking about, we talked about it on the panel, that there's, we're balancing our time and our profitability and our quality, where we can really achieve great production, great quality, and have a lot of time, is by getting our system working well as nature does. And when you have microbial diversity in the soil, the production, the yield, the quality, the disease resistance is there in such a way that the work of farming, farming is still hard work, but the work of farming stops being this battle against all these forces that are coming to bear on you. And so, on our farm in Hawaii, for example, we did heavy treatment of IMO on a 144-acre trial. I ran a 144-acre trial for 4 years before we converted our whole farm. And I don't need to apply IMO there anymore. It's an orchard and it's trees, so we're not disturbing the ground.
What's IMO, Chris?
Thank you. So, sadly, natural farming uses a ton of acronyms. And it's like another language that's initially quite hard to access. So I apologize for that. I don't see a great solution, because if you said all the words all the time, it's a mouthful. Indigenous microorganism is really the 80% of natural farming. So natural farming has all these...
That is IMO.
IMO. Natural farming has all these ferments and fertilizers you can make, and really valuable. We can get into exactly what that is, but it's this idea, there's a lot of products on the shelf. Bugs in a jug. You can buy bacterias and EM and all these things, and what those are a series of tested bacteria or tested microbes where they've isolated, and they say this does something positive, and then you're applying this kind of very narrow species, and that's expensive stuff. IMO, the difference there, even if you have some of those similar bacterias, is that those, when you apply a lab-grown microbe, those on the ground, or even EM, they have a fall off about 3 months to 6 months max, where they're no longer found in your soil. They've been taken over by what's indigenous. So that's helpful for conditioning the soil, but you're not creating perpetual improvement or sustainable life in your soil. So the premise in natural farming is, by harvesting from regions that have maintained microbial diversity, by getting a collection from there and then growing that out and transferring it to your farmland, you can establish microbial life that likes your rainfall, likes your barometric pressure, likes your soil type, and can thrive there. So once established, as you care for it, now that is growing, increasing, and conditioning your soil deeper and deeper, creating greater water retention, and
Who knows what that's called in mushroom terms? What do we call that? Oh, come on.
What is it called, Cass?
It starts with an I. Inoculation.
That's right.
Come on, guys, where are we at? Are people awake? We're inoculating different areas with different microbes to be able to create a new environment for things to thrive, right? That's what we're doing?
That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. This all comes totally full circle, right?
Thanks.
I just need to make sure you guys are still awake. You guys have some glassy eyes here. You guys been taking some safety breaks or what?
So, natural farming, I'm not going to teach the details of natural farming or how to do it right now. Was never the plan. Tomorrow we're going to get into the details. I got a whiteboard. I'm going to write it out, throw some pictures on the screen. But it's more like priming your brain. This is how I farm. I got things I do. How do I incorporate this? The good news is the IMO that we're talking about, we're going to talk about some of the other preps, free videos on YouTube. How to takes you through, you just search Chris Trump, and there's a series, some 20, 30 videos on how to do all this.
I've got some questions for you, Chris.
Yeah.
What are the benefits of natural farming?
Okay, well, I gotta finish IMO. Let's circle back. We were rabbit trailing. The benefits of natural farming. We'll get into it. That's a good question.
Okay, go ahead.
IMO is a cultivation of indigenous microbes. You get a bunch of collections, and really the jewel of natural farming, in my opinion, is that a farmer can go out with some rice in the forest, bring back and create a shelf-stable inoculum that you can have on your shelf. You got 9 or 10 of them, 12 of them from different seasons of the year, spring, summer, fall, and that those are available to you even if you do nothing else of natural farming, that you can take microbes, indigenous fungi, and effectively put it in cryo-freeze, because remember, spores can survive in space. We put them in a desertified environment because of the dryness of a sugar, and those spores sit there waiting for, in one generation removed from their indigenous, their wild environment, they sit there in that sugar waiting for reintroduction to water, because microbes need water to do anything. And so a farmer, you guys, can, with almost no cost, other than a little bit of rice, have thousands of dollars of diverse indigenous inoculum from your area, perfectly conditioned, perfectly, not only the microbe that you might pick out of there is perfectly, like if I pick one spore, yes, that loves your environment, but what's cool about collecting a wild inoculum and what we're going for is we don't want just a fungi that does something cool. We want the whole community that's been established that work together symbiotically. We're already functioning in this beautiful forest or some other place that we go to that's wild. And by inoculating our soil with that, we're bringing in the blacksmith, the doctor, the grocer, the farmer. We're bringing in the whole community to start our, prairie town. And everybody's there. And so they all start working in harmony in your soil. And so water retention, that was one of the first things as a farmer that I started really skeptical in a look at natural farming. We had 16 to 30 employees. I couldn't take my farm in a direction that wasn't going to continue to provide them with a job. So we started with a 14 tree trial, and we had disease remediation that was unheard of in my industry. And then we went on 50-acre trial and 144-acre trial that we ran for 4 years. But the way that what was I talking about before that?
We were talking about IMO. We were talking about the way that you're able to inoculate an area so that it's primed and ready to go, so that you can grow the things that you need to grow.
I had a
and
point
we're talking about water retention.
Water retention, right. That was the reason that I went from a 5-acre trial to aiming at converting the whole farm. We had an 8-month drought event. Sorry if you've heard me talk about this, but it was pretty vital for our change, shifting over. We were looking for a reason, does this work? And we applied just IMO. I didn't do any other treatments. We inoculated the ground on 5 acres and a 14-tree trial. Our entire farm, 750 acres, yellowed from water stress. Everything was stressed out. We never get that long a stint without rain where I live, except this 5-acre block and this 14-tree trial. They stayed green.
We get some snaps and claps for that.
Go nature. So we're driving around. Me and my dad were managing this farm. We're driving around, and it's like, okay, well, it felt like preschool, where they're like, okay, follow the red line, follow the yellow, follow the green line. It was like farming by colors. That's good. This isn't good. We should do more of that. So, just observation. of your environment becomes one of the things that you're encouraged to return to. What am I seeing? What does my plant need? What is and then you have these tools, this kind of farming suite of resources to make those changes, all while spending almost nothing on your fertilizer, getting drought resistance, and doing away with disease completely. That is one thing across the board, is natural farming. Once you establish diverse microbial life, we're not dealing with disease, or it's a one-off, or it's a rare occurrence. It just stops being a thing that we're facing, because disease is everywhere, right? We're constantly inundated. E. coli, we're like, oh no, E. coli's good. You're dead without E. coli. E. coli is everywhere. The only time that these disease microbes are not okay is when they're not in balance. So in a sterile environment, if disease shows up, there's nothing to check its progress. There's nothing to check it from running away with the system. In an environment like this, when disease shows up, the big bad fungi go, that's cute. Your job is to take out the trash over and over for the rest of your life. And that's how nature works. It works in balance. It works in there's symbiotic relationships, and the disease microbes actually have important roles to play in breaking down a little tree in the forest that actually started on a rock and it's struggling, and so that actually doesn't belong there, and it gets predated and becomes compost. It feeds the rest of the trees. There's things get sick or pulled down, they get digested, and they become food for the things that are thriving. That happens in nature, and that's some of these roles that diseases play in a thriving environment. They're like, oh, yeah, that tree was never going to make it. You can have that one. Process that. We'll turn it into food, and then you need to go back to sleep because we don't need you right now. That's kind of the role that disease plays in a thriving, diverse microbial environment. And so, natural farming, again, this is all kind of talking about IMO in different ways. Indigenous microorganism is this key tool. We talk about good compost, and good compost is amazing, but typically compost is not inoculated. People don't inoculate compost. They take plant material, they mix it up, they let it cook, and then they use it as food. The only microbes in that compost are what was on the plant material when you started, right? Or what was on the soil that you made your compost on. And so typically it's a very narrow diversity in compost. And so like we were doing, on our organic farm, we were composting and doing vermicompost teas and all this stuff. So we're doing the right stuff. But what I've learned and what I now know, and why I think this is the avenue for world takeover, is that we were lacking diverse fungal populations. It is very easy in composting, in compost tea, to establish bacteria. I always say we sneeze in natural farming, we have all the bacteria we need. It's just so easy to do. So we don't need to buy bugs in a jug. We don't need to get EM or any of these things. I'm not against those, because for some people that's a great soil conditioner. It helps to convert nutrients. Positive, but it's not the answer. It's not the answer, which is diverse fungal population. So in natural farming, it's a very simple method to produce the best compost in the world. And it's really boutique compost. And I have a standing invitation to challenge anybody that'd like to producing the most fungally dominant and diverse compost. If you think you can beat me, then we'll just set the parameters of the contest and we'll do it. And it's not about my ability to do it. It's more this system works really well. And I have a client who's 1,000-acre farm in Iowa. He grows corn, soy, alfalfa, and rye, and he's converted his entire system to natural farming and is running with success. He saved $100,000 on fertilizer last year, while getting paid the same amount of money. So
Talk about inflation prices.
Yeah. So some of my role ends up being helping people farm at scale with this technique, and I learned this in South Korea. I was there 11 times to kind of study. I learned it initially in Hawaii, but what I learned there was that I had no mentor for scaling natural farming. So I scaled it for a 750 acre farm, and then that's been a model we've been able to transfer to other farms. But what's neat about, like you were asking about a small scale operation, he's playing with the kids right now, but maybe I'll wait. I'll address the other dudes that left the question. So there is a need to purchase sugar. There's a need to purchase a few things. And people kind of...
He's talking about when you're making inputs.
When you're making inputs in some of this process. And people kind of poo-poo, oh, that's not sustainable, or you're bringing in you're bringing in products that are grown outside. And there is ways to do it just with what you have. However, what we're using in natural farming as you use sugar, you're using this tiny, tiny amount, like homeopathic amount. So you're buying a tiny... So for my 750 acre farm, I needed like 300 pounds of sugar for the year, for our thing. So in the scope of things, when we used to bring in containers of fertilizer, 700 or 300 pounds of sugar is pretty minor. And so, yeah, there's a few things you need to use. You can do it without that. Natural farming, Master Cho's son said this needs to be simpler and cheaper, and created Jadam. Jadam does not have fungal tech. I'm just giving you terms right now, so these are things you can look up. This is kind of a teaser to the concept. If you want to grow fire buds, we'll do that tomorrow.
You want to grow fire bud.
We'll talk about some of the work we've been doing in that industry. But really, what this is a way to have your sovereignty on your farm. You need nobody's preparation or input to purchase, and the cost of what you're purchasing is negligible to almost nothing. So we're able to produce our fertilizer. We're able to condition our soil with life, and you can do it in a garden scale, or you can do it at 1,000 acre scale. Natural farming is it's skill based. So there is a little barrier to entry in that there's a learning curve. So if you want to jump into this, I would love to tell you, oh yeah, you just buy these, nearly free products and you put them on your farm and it doesn't take any learning, but that's not how it goes. I would say give yourself a year to get good at IMO and lean into, fail quickly?
Say fail fast.
Fail fast and often. Lean into the failures, because that is exactly what you need to master it. What you need is, oh, that went wrong. Why did that go wrong? There's a whole online community where you can throw pictures and ask questions, and there's some real experts. If you want to join a Facebook group to ask your questions as you get started, I like KNF and Jadam. All the moderators, anybody that has a moderator name, is a expert. They're people that are doing it well. They're already farming with it. They've been farming with it for years, and they're successful. So hand-picked moderator group, and you can throw your pictures. You can have your failures. How did I fail? Get your answer. Go back and try it again. But it's a lot more like learning guitar or learning to bake a quiche or something. It's not a ready-to-go system for you. And that is a barrier to entry. So people are producing products, etc. But
I feel like it's like that East-West kind of ideology of teaching too.
Truth.
There's so much Eastern teaching in you don't get all the answers right up front. and you kind of have to go through some of the processes.
Or you ask a question and the teacher responds with a question.
Yeah, that's a lot of KNF. But it's brilliant because those are the nuances that lead you to having the solutions that you need in a way that's frustrating to most Americans and me, but it's a process in a holistic sense. It's not just you making these inputs to create a biome that's sustainable for your ecosystem that you're trying to cultivate. This ideology changed my understanding and drive to want to grow plants more, because you can eat all of your KNF inputs. I don't know if you brought that up. Can I talk about that for a second? Labs changed my life. I mean, we talked about it. Crystal just made some the other day. But every KNF input, there are 9.
There's more, but yeah, about that.
The 9 beginning ones. I'm not wrong. What I was trying to say though is you can eat all of those, and those are all key aspects to building your own biome to match that soil's biome, which you're signaling things in the soil to be able to have the output that you want to grow the most fire buds or to produce the best apples or bananas or whatever it is that you want. And you can signal the same things within your biome too to match that. So that's a whole... Molly's here. Molly! You guys, Molly's class is going to be soon, I promise. But that whole aspect of it, and actually, you know, it's going to be interesting because Molly's going to be talking about mycelium and soil for natural wine production as well. So that's going to totally correlate with what we're talking about. But yeah, so I think that the scope of it is a reflection of the ideology of the way that it's taught. And so it's the physical gain of being able to have that fruit that's the tastiest. We all know when we get Korean natural farming bud, we're like, oh, you got the good stuff, you know? And same with the, I was talking about the Tom's KNF farm. Yeah. So when you have Korean natural farming products, they're always going to be better. But I think it's the mental game too of this person took the time to understand and digest what it really truly means to make these things, and in so that process of patience and that process of knowledge and that process of learning, all that energy doesn't just go to waste. That all radiates through, you know, the creator to what it is that you guys are doing and what you're making. And that's why Korean natural farming is so appealing. It's a whole system. We talked about whole systems from a sustainability standpoint for businesses. It's all one. It's all related.
Yeah, it's when I took the class from Master Cho, I looked at my notes and every other line was love. And I'm like, all right, 750 acres grown with love. What else do I need? Like, my friend Poncho leaned over and he's like, where are we going here? How do we do this? You know, love doesn't grow food, but it does. I think a Western translation might be a conscientious care for what you're doing. I like the example of, you know, Cass brought up fire buds. The Korean natural farming weed tastes better. It has the entourage effect of diverse biochemicals.
Well, the full expression of the plant. I just want to add...
Full genetic potential.
Full genetic potential. You can grow a... what's the word I'm looking for? You can grow a plant, right, on your balcony that doesn't have a whole lot of quality, and it doesn't have what it needs, and it's stressed out, and it'll produce. I've got a baby tomato at my house. It'll produce. But I haven't taken love and care. If I would have, it would be a whole different product. It tastes different. It has a full range of genetic expression that's able to actually physically come out because of its ability to have that nourishment.
I like the example of flavor. It helps us understand why and what and how we can smell our nutrition at the grocery store. You had the strawberry from Costco or whatever, and it's beautiful and red and looks juicy, and you bite into it, and it's just total disappointment in your mouth. It's just like water, you know? You're like, ah. And then you pick a little strawberry from like grandma's like garden patch or some wild one, and it's an explosion of flavor in your mouth. What that is that that hydroponic grown fruit had access to NPK. It had everything it needed to grow red and big.
What's NPK, Chris?
Nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, or phosphorus and potassium. With just the conventional mindset in production that we just need a few chemicals and you can produce all the food. The in a natural system, there's a whole rhizophagy process where bacteria can be traveling in a fungal network. The fungi has a relationship in the root zone that's been established, either inside and integrated with the root or outside. And the plant is actually communicating through a biochemical exchange and saying, I need iron or boron or manganese. And that communication goes down, and after it uses a little oxygen to blast off the nutrient that bacteria is bringing to it, it's a little sheath that the bacteria carries its nutrients on, and it consumes that, it sends that bacteria back out with a biochemical charge telling it which nutrient to bring to it next. And that bacteria goes out, potentially through the fungal network, potentially through the field there in the soil, acquires that necessary nutrient and brings it back for delivery. The fungi is doing the same thing. A plant cannot digest rock, sand, silt, and clay. So all the components of soil are packed with mineral and diverse nutrients for the plant. It can't access any of them. It has little acid. Plant roots have little acids. All they can really do with that is like break a crack into a rock over time so that it can continue to push its root down, but it can't actually digest any of that. So what happens in a diverse microbial system is these microbes are working symbiotically. They provide all this nutrient in the plant's root zone. That plant now has on-demand minor minerals available to it. Now it can produce those complex sugars that we associate with flavor, and those terpenes that are good for our endocannabinoid system, and all these things that correlate to health. I believe that cancer is a nutrient deficiency. I think that much of disease in general is a nutrient deficiency. So we're talking about saving money because you're not spending so much on the inputs, while at the same time providing your plant with the best possible inputs, producing the most quality food, and eventually, like now, my 144 acre trial, I don't need to do anything, and I go there after being gone for a year, and I go to my tractor tire tracks. I just find any old stick that's decomposing, that's fallen out of the trees, and I can push a brittle stick 1.5 feet into the tire tracks in my orchard, and I push away any leaves in my orchard, and it's a mycelial mat. And I don't have to maintain that. I don't have to do anything because it was indigenous diversity. They're self-perpetuating. They're protecting my trees from disease. They're feeding my trees. And I generally, in my understanding now of science, I've been doing this specifically since 2009, Korean natural farming, but I grew up farming all the crops with my dad. Learned a lot about failed ag business. But I believe that nature is a net positive, that the sunlight we get is enough of an addition that I can take off a commercial amount of crop from my macadamia nut trees every year or from your land and still have increase in fertility and longevity in my soil. I don't need some input to replace all the stuff I'm taking out. I think literally nature, through photosynthesis, the plants are able to produce enough to replace everything they're taking off. And that soil can get better and better even though you're harvesting it year after year after year. And so natural farming is the avenue to achieve that. I've personally witnessed that achieved all over the world. And quick and easy access. So I'm going to give you a couple of things if you want to jot notes on easy entry places to start with natural farming. I would say if you're a home gardener and you want a kind of easy place to start, one of those would be JMS. So this is a soil conditioner. This will cost you 3 potatoes and a small handful of salt. And for 3 potatoes and a small handful of salt, you can beat every single product you would potentially buy. Your lens cover's on. You could beat every bug in a jug product you could potentially buy. So 3 potatoes and a handful of salt, you have a better thing than EM, for example. EM is 3 microbes isolated and identified that are in Okinawa, Japan. And they said, oh, these work really well. They're 100% right. Those 3 microbes are wonderful soil conditioners and nutrient cyclers. They're all bacteria. But you have those same microbes right here. But these are slightly different DNA adapted to this environment. So JMS, you go out, you get a little mycelium and leaf litter and soil from the local environment, and you grow it out on a carbohydrate and some minor minerals. And then apply that to your ag land. Super easy.
Do not eat.
Yeah, JMS will give you the runs if you drink it. Oh my gosh.
Fine.
We won't talk about it.
This is $6 whiteboard. Got a bunch of them on offer up.
What have you been doing with natural farming, Cass? What was
Me,
easy?
little old
What
me.
what was easy entry?
Okay, so I fish. So easy entry for me was FAA. And I told my mom, I said, put a note on your calendar. I don't know if you remember this. I said, put a note on your calendar. I put a bunch of fish in a bucket with sugar. And she said, gross! And I said, I'm going to make the best fish sauce with this. And that was the easiest access for me. But I also had...
Have you tasted it?
It's... Tell them.
We use it in broth. It's great.
It's
In broth. Chinese medicine broth, it's great in that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, salmon, I think I called you. I had 2 or 3 carcasses, and I, my air space could have been less, but it's the bucket that I had accessible. Sugar, brown sugar, and some IMO, and actually it was IMO that Nick gave me in Nevada City that he had from this area, this region. So it was perfect. And I sprinkled some IMO on top, those indigenous microorganisms. They took care of everything, and the sugar and the salmon did their fermentation process. It is so tasty. It's the most decadent, like, rich, umami flavored, and you're gonna be shocked, Mom, because I'm gonna bring you some. And you're gonna taste it. It's really good, and the process of that too is interesting because I talk to Chris pretty frequently, but we opened it one day and we're like, oh, it smells a little boozy, and okay, well let's think about it. Well, what do we need to do? Well, it probably has too much air in the space. Let's put some holes in it so that. Thank you so much, John. My Sharpie's going to be up there forever. Everybody needs to use JMS. Let's think about it, what we can do. So we put some air exchange in there, smaller holes, and I was a little worried because I was like, okay, well, it's in a back room, bugs might get in there, but I put a little bit more IMO, and it's been rocking. There's nothing wrong with it. We use it all the time, and it feels so cool to have that. And we grow a little bit of cannabis at home, and so that's an amazing thing specifically for cannabis.
So you made your own fertilizer?
Yeah.
With fish guts?
With fish guts, which I ate all the fillets. So for me, I usually make broth anyways, but allocate that carcass to your amino acid, and you've got like the most perfect thing. And it lasts, guys. We're talking minute amounts go into the soil, and I have an abundance of it.
Sweet.
I've got to give you some.
I would love to taste it.
Labs is another one that's really easy to do. The process is simple. Go ahead.
Lab is good for everything. Lab is used for digestional health. Lab is the cure for dysentery.
Why don't you tell them what LAB stands for?
LAB stands for lactic acid bacteria. It's made using a little rice wash water and a bit of milk, and you grow out locally cultured lactobacilli family microbes, and they're a huge contributor to the whole soil food web.
They're great for your gut, which is great for your butt, like we were talking about today. That's I'm going to put that on a sticker. Good for your gut, good for your butt.
Write that in Sharpie.
I'm going to wrap it on the car next.
Yeah, there's a whole suite of inputs that are used fermentation. That Cass was talking about, FAA, is using fungi and bacteria to break down those complex proteins and oils into a micronized version of themselves. And this is the key, micronization. So if I apply a bag of fertilizer, I am hoping that I get about 20% uptake in my crop year with that bag of fertilizer. That's standard. That's what most farmers are expecting they're going to get out of their bag of fertilizer, and that's acceptable. And they're hoping that over time that they'll get the rest of that. But typically what happens is it creates a hard pan in a bad agricultural system, and problems and buildup and salt buildup. Whereas natural farming, you're making these inputs, and we're using very little amount because we are not chopping them like fish hydrolysate or fish emulsion. Those are blended products. They've been blended up, they've been cooked. Some of the oils have been taken out for like fish oil pills or something. And so these are byproducts that they're selling you as fertilizer. With FAA, it's being processed by microbes. So it's passing through their systems, and you're getting the raw components available to you for your plants. That micronized version can be taken up through the cuticle, through the cell wall of the plant. Literally on the leaf, it can absorb it, just like your skin's super absorbent, and certain things can pass through your skin, and you can be directly affected almost immediately. Alcohol's gone through a fermentation process, micronized. So if you lay down in like a bathtub of vodka, it'll kill you because you'll absorb it all right away. These nutrients. These nutrients are absorbable by the plant. They don't need microbes to convert them to make them plant absorbable. And so this whole nutrient suite is excellent for easy access, availability for nutrient uptake. How are we on time?
Wrapping it up.
Okay, perfect. I think what I want to end with is a little philosophy and hope. There is a grassroots movement where people are doing regenerative agriculture all across the U.S., but specifically around natural farming. I have a farmer friend in Cape Cod. He's farming out there. He's been an organic farmer for 30 years, and he spent a year doing natural farming after taking a class, and he talked to me, and he's like, hey, and we were talking while he's on vacation. He's like, hey, I'm on vacation with the money I saved from doing natural farming the last year, the money I saved on inputs. And he said, I've never been so excited to do what I do because it's easier, and I have control of all the things that are going in my farm. Not that he wanted control, but he's not trying to figure out if somebody's making something well or he's getting the right product. And so really, really exciting to be in a world where we have hope in agriculture. We haven't had a good answer. But if you're, garden scale or small farm scale, play with JMS as a good soil conditioner as you learn IMO. Learn IMO and you can farm anything, anywhere for the rest of your life. In any environment. Why would it work in any environment? Indigenous, right. So people are like, oh, but I live in a desert. That's not going to work here. I'm like, wait. The microbes in the desert are the ones that can handle that rainfall, that temperature, can process that sand. And so people are like, oh, I can't do it. I can't get a good collection. It's too hot. We did a class in Boise, Idaho. The week was 105 all week, and we put out our collection. Cheryl was there. How beautiful were those blooms of fungi? Yeah. And so we got these mycelial blooms, these mats of microscopic fungi blooming in 105 degrees, dry as can be, because those microbes thrive in that environment. So when you put them in your ag land, they are starting to cycle your nutrients. The amount of nutrient cycling you can have with just a diverse soil microbiota is pretty incredible. And then this is exactly what you need. Those diverse soil microbes grown on the plant leaves that sprung up out of the ground of the seeds. Those diverse microbes are exactly what you need on your food to correct your gut. We go to the grocery store and we get bleach washed food, and we never get any fungal inoculum. You could buy probiotics, but there's only like 2 or 3 fungal probiotics in the whole U.S. market. But we desperately need some of these larger organisms to sit in our large intestine and process that lignin-rich material that makes it through our small intestine. And so this is ultimately, the guy that wrote One Straw Revolution says the goal of farming is the cultivation and perfection of humankind. And really farming is about, is about our food, is about our health. The goal here is that my children's grocery stores will look different than mine. That they'll go to the store and everything there is on the shelf because it's cheaper to grow it this way. You can get the same yield, keep more money in your pocket, and produce a better product. So, that's my sales pitch, guys. I'm sorry I didn't teach you a bunch of things, but I spent endless hours making YouTube videos so that you could do it in the comfort of your own home while you got all your materials on the shelf. I would say my biggest advice to getting started with natural farming is to set yourself up with a lab space. Set yourself up with a space where all your stuff is there. Your tools, your funnels, your cutting board, all the things you typically need. Get some extra sugar on the shelf, get some vinegar. Set that up. Natural farming will seem really easy. If you're always having to run around and find all your implements to do it, it's kind of challenging. The other thing I want to say is my advice. While you're learning, play with all the stuff. But remember, the point of natural farming isn't to play with all the stuff. The point is to have it on your shelf and farm. So you still got a lot to do with your farm. You don't want to be dinking with. So once you get your kind of learning out of the way, figure out what you need for 6 months or a year of production. Make it all in a week and have it on the shelf ready to go. And you're only making stuff for natural farming production maybe once or twice a year. 2 weeks a year you make all your fertilizer. I made all the fertilizer for our 750 acre farm, all our teas, all our IMOs, 2 weeks a year. Yeah, so just a tool. I'm around. Talk to me, ask me all the questions. I am very approachable. I have a mean, angry-looking face, but
A lot of Capricorn placements.
I'm generally a nice guy. And we'll get more into details on how to do things and structure things for production tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks for sitting with me, Cass. Sorry I didn't let you talk.
No, I mean, I knew that was going to be the case. I also just wanted to say, because we talk about cancer as being more of a nutrient deficiency, and I want to say that a large part of that has to do with the fact that it has absolutely nothing to do with anyone anyone's fault, and it really has to do with the fault of the powers that play and the big money that's in the hands of these industries, not providing the correct nutrients for people to be able to thrive, which is why we, I mean, I keep going back to this, but like took so much time to really put the nourishing meals together that we did this weekend, because we want people to experience what that looks like. And so, yeah, I just, you know, we're all trying our best every single day, and it's a big piece for Chris to be up here talking about what it tastes like, you know, talking about the strawberry analogy. That's something that we can all understand and relate to, you know. And we know what good food is supposed to taste like and what good food is supposed to smell like. And so, yeah, the more people we can get on this KNF wave, the better that we will have this place to leave for our children and our children's children. So thank you for joining us in our World Takeover Plan.